going themselves with Kaepernick. He has 2 rushing touchdowns on the year already. Who does have an arm? They wouldn't be afraid to let him loose in a few plays in the game. Just the way everybody's working here. They got great wide receivers, fullbacks, running backs. Just everything on this team seems to be working well. And you don't have to get me started on the defense. I think we all know the story there. But just a record-setting day, and this reemergence of Alex Smith is just fun to see that he's finally playing like the number 1 pick that he was supposed to be all along. And really it comes up to maybe that loss helps the Niners. They don't have to worry about being undefeated. It kind of got them back down to earth to just do what they do best. And at this point, it looks like nobody can really stop this team.
And it's a dream scenario for San Francisco, as you mentioned. 6th in the NFL on offense, 2nd in the NFL on defense, 1st in the NFL in points per game allowed. And right now for San Francisco, certainly, I'm a fan too of what they're doing with the quarterback situation. Colin Kaepernick sparingly getting the plays at the wildcat position. And right now, overall as a unit, I like to see, if you're a San Francisco fan, you really like to see the resurgence of Michael Crabtree. I didn't really see this coming, but he led the, Niners in receiving today. He had a big, big scoring day as well. And right now for, the San Francisco 49ers, they have 3, 4, maybe even 5 receiving threats, to reckon with over in the NFL. Michael Crabtree, Vernon Davis, Kyle Williams, Mario Manningham, and Randy Moss, respectively, leading, their team in receiving today. And right now for, the San Fran 49ers, Alex Smith, as long as he cuts down the turnovers, 3 TDs and no picks today, certainly, San Francisco to reckon with among the elite in the NFC, let alone the NFL.
Yeah, you want to talk about spreading the ball around in the passing game. That's something we're used to seeing from multiple teams, but the Niners are doing something I can never really imagine seeing. So looking at the stats here, they had 7 different players carry the ball. I don't know what the record is on that, but it's got to be coming up close to it. You had 100-plus yards by Frank Gore. You had Kendall Hunter with 80 yards, Colin Kaepernick with 40, Alex Smith with 50. They have so many guys, even in the running game. They're very diverse. They pick and choose players they want. They look for mismatches. And it doesn't matter who they put on the field. They know the strengths of those players and what they can do with those players to exploit your defense.
Harbaugh, certainly John Harbaugh, engineering this team to being fixed for the playoffs. And in a way, you mentioned, not having that burden of going 16-0 on their back anymore. And I don't see Atlanta getting more than 7 or 8 wins before racking up their first loss. So right now for the NFL, it's pretty much, it's all games on right now at this point. And San Francisco right now offensively, perhaps the most balanced team. Now we'll have to wait and see, just how correct we are, when the Niners face the Giants at home in Candlestick. And right now for the Niners, if they can pull off that win, a very easy schedule in the next few games, just reading off here, home against the Seahawks, on the road against the Cardinals before the bye, then you take on the Rams, Bears, Saints, and then a trip to St. Louis, respectively. That's a team that can perhaps put up 13, 14 wins. Now, I mentioned that before the year started that the Niners are among the elite, and, who wouldn't mark them as the top 2 or 3 teams in the league, with getting their receiving core, under, getting new receivers, and now they're among one of the elite. Their defense is always coming along, and right now for the Niners, I mentioned as long as Alex Smith gets that turnover ratio down, they're among the elite in the NFL, and after this Week 6 game against the Giants, it'll say an awful lot about the Niners as a football team. Right now, they're looking good. Let's play some real competition. The Giants are on tap next week in Candlestick.
Yeah, it's a situation with the 49ers that you don't know who's going to stop this team. Obviously, the Giants will be a great test for them. I think their schedule does spice up a little bit down the road. But I think it's very, easy to say that this is going to be a top 1 or 2 seeded team, in the NFL. After losing that game to the Vikings, everybody thinking, oh, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. But, of course, they responded like the way champions do, and they've come out, 60-plus points to 3 in their last 2 games. It's just crazy to see how well this team is playing. And with so many different players, as I said again, they don't have 1 or 2 guys they go to. They have 6 or 7 guys they can go to in any given situation. And it's really just, the perfect combination of a team, because everyone has their role and they do it to the best of their ability, which is exactly what you would want in a team. Obviously, I think Jim Harbaugh has the dream situation right now in the NFL.
Harbaugh certainly prepares his troops for a week, for every given week. And, in a sense, we're already beating a dead horse on just how good the Niners are. But, they're just very impressive. And right now, outside of the Giants in their schedule, nothing until the last few weeks of the year I see is even being a competition. Nothing to make of the Cardinals anymore, not undefeated. And they're certainly a team that will still be trying to get just a wild card spot at least. The Niners are the class of that division, and now as they're tied for the lead, it's now now or never for the Niners to get a first seed in the playoffs, and it starts with the Giants next week, and certainly the Niners are as the most well-rounded team in the NFL competing for that spot, among the elite in the NFC. And over in the AFC, same to make of the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, he tried to discipline his wide receiver in Wes Welker by sitting him out a few weeks, but Brady and Welker just shreds up the Broncos. And without some late kind of mistakes, you're not used to seeing that in New England with some fumbles and interceptions. Denver was completely blown out of this game. And what to make of the New England Patriots, Phil? After such a dominant win, they're no longer, even though they're 3-2, they're a good 3-2 and still to reckon with in the AFC.
Yeah, you look at this game, you see it was 31-21. It was a 10-point game. Anyone who watched this game will tell you that it wasn't even that close. The Patriots playing very well in this game. Peyton Manning still did have a solid day. Obviously some of the stats are misleading because a lot of it is in that come from behind fashion. But Manning did throw for 345 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tom Brady getting the best of Peyton Manning in this rivalry, the rivalry that we pretty much grew up with, one of the better ones. Tom Brady 9-4 all time against Peyton Manning led teams. So, roughly twice as many wins as losses against Peyton Manning. But what I like about this rivalry is both guys win just enough for you to call it a rivalry. You look at, even some of these college football rivalries these days, you look at from this past week, I know this is an NFL show, but Miami and Notre Dame is supposed to be a rivalry, whereas Miami hasn't beaten them in over, 10 years. It's not really a rivalry unless, both teams win some of the time. So this is a situation, whenever Brady and Manning play, it's always special, and Brady getting the best of this Manning, at least this time around.
And Phil, you certainly know about one team in a rivalry proving strong over another. The Eagles have won 7 of the past 8, I believe, against the Giants. Certainly, this rivalry has had some very exciting moments, and the Patriots get the better of Manning and the Broncos. And now we have Cameron Sadeghi on the line. Certainly, we love to see him, on every single week. And Cameron, what to make of this New England game? Now the Patriots first in the NFL, in total offense and points per game. This offense is perhaps the elite in the NFL. And if the defense can come along, certainly the Patriots are, one of those dominant teams that are just getting hot right now, even though they're 3-2. They're one of the best in the NFL, Cameron.
I have to agree with that. I just think this offense is actually better than last year. And look, I'm not just looking at it from a statistical perspective. I'm looking at it from a perspective just on hand, just watching games. And I see that the New England Patriots are first on the ground. That's the most important part about this Patriots team. It reminds me of those Super Bowl teams. It reminds me of 2003. It reminds me of 2005 when they beat the Eagles. It reminds me of those years because they're taking it on the ground, they're using the short passing game, and they're putting less pressure on Tom Brady, and then he'll make those key critical throws down the stretch when they need it most. I think you can see a more refreshed Tom Brady, a less pressurized Tom Brady, one who's throwing more crisper passes, and this will help him in January and February so that he can have that ability to have a running game where he can use the play action, where he can find wide open guys downfield. It creates continuity for this offense. And since the defense is not coming along, I actually think it's improving week in and week out. I think this is a team, yes, they give up a ton of they give up a ton of yards. I saw the whole entire game. You're right. They do give up 20-yard gains occasionally. They will give up the big play. But when it matters most, they get the turnovers that matter most. They win the turnover battle. It's just those little things that New England does. Their discipline shows, and I feel like you saw the Demaryius Thomas fumble. You saw the Peyton Manning fumble. Those things are game-changing plays that the Patriots make, and those are the plays that will take them to the Super Bowl, I believe, and I think those are the plays that will make the New England Patriots hoisting the trophy at the end of this year.
And Cameron, you mentioned that the Patriots are a more talented offense, and their defense also is coming along. Last year they were last in the NFL for a long time in that category, and now the defense is also coming along near the midway point of, the league on the defensive side of the ball. How good do you see this Patriots team? You said Super Bowl, and certainly over New England. It's very hard pressed to not see the Patriots make a push for that, let alone get back to that Super Bowl, title. And certainly for the Patriots, it's now or never for getting another Super Bowl. Let's mention that it's been it's been about 10 years. It's been 8 years, actually, since the Patriots have, won the big game. 2004 was the last time. So that Tom Brady, very hungry to get back to the big game. What to make of the Patriots, and how good do you see this New England squad, being in this year?
I think honestly, Nick and Phil, I think this is it. I think this is pretty much. It's really this year, or next year will be. I just think this is the year for New England. I feel like there's basically no room for error here, and I feel like you can see that in New England and the way they played and their commitment to the ground game. Let me just tell you, if New England stays healthy, hey, they can compete with San Francisco, and I know, and some people say, oh, wow, look at you, you're saying they can compete with San Francisco. If you can have that much continuity on the offensive side of the football, and you have that ability to run the football and to throw the football equally and effectively, I think it gives you a beautiful chance to beat teams like San Francisco, Baltimore, those type of defensive teams that are hard to beat. Now, look, I think New England, to be honest, I still think they are a Super Bowl team. Now, next year, I don't know if that will be the same because of Tom Brady being a little bit older. But now, I think this is the prime time for the New England Patriots to win. They know it too. They know it's kind of closing. The window's a little bit closing. And I think everyone in New England would agree with my assessment on that part.
Absolutely, Cameron. And Phil, you have anything?
Really, I think the thing I agree with the most is, you look at the difference between the Patriots teams that win Super Bowls and ones that get there and lose. The biggest difference, of course, being, run games. You think of, any Patriot fan is going to know this name. Corey Dillon, was a staple of their run game during the time they were winning the Super Bowls. So you combine that with, a little bit of videotape and then, the rest of those offensive weapons, and you got Super Bowl recipe. So you see those teams, and that's the biggest difference. Did they make it to the Super Bowls without a stabilized run game? Of course they did. But really, I think that's one of the things that's the biggest difference. And not only do they have running backs, they have good young running backs, and they have good young tight ends. It's definitely different. We've seen the Patriot, aerial show lead them there. But once they get there, they always run into a brick wall, ironically enough, both times being the brick wall of the New York Football Giants. But it could have been any brick wall when you get to the Super Bowl. Those aerial shows can help you get there. But when it comes down to it, you got to run the football. And I think they finally have pieces in place that they can do that effectively.
I have to agree with what you said there. And, I just think that, the passes, Tom Brady threw it so much in last year's Super Bowl. There's a ton of pressure on him. It was him or nothing. And, of course, you can't put all the team or all the game on one guy. It's got to be a collective effort. And you see that with New England. They're putting it on the ground. And I know I've mentioned that 1,000 times, but it's a pretty big deal. If you follow New England a lot like I do, and you've seen Corey Dillon, you've seen all these things all happen before, and you know what the recipe for success is. And I truly see this. I think it's like a flashback to 2005. That's what I believe. this team has been like in New England.
Absolutely.